Can you even do the job? You whore.
Slap! Her hand cracked across his face. The sound echoed through a ballroom full of 300 people.
Why? Why did you hit me?
Why? Because you ruined my dress. Get on your knees. And clean it.
It was just a drop.
Did I say you could open your mouth?
Crimson nails grabbed his collar.
Look at you. Stinking up a room you don't belong in.
I'm sorry. Please.
Sorry doesn't fix my dress. Security. Get this thing out before it touches something else.
300 guests, champagne glasses frozen midair, not one word. He straightened his collar, folded his apron, walked out. Nobody stopped her. Nobody said a thing. But very soon she would regret everything she just did. The Meridian Grand Hotel had spent 4 months preparing for this night. 4,000 crystal teardrops hung from the ballroom ceiling, splitting light into tiny rainbows that crawled across white marble. Champagne towers rose 6 tiers high at every corner. Dom Perignon, nothing less. A string quartet played Vivaldi near the east wall. Nobody listened. The annual Whitfield Industries Charity Gala was never about charity. It was about being seen, about who wore what, who stood next to whom, who mattered. 300 guests filled the room. Hedge fund managers in bespoke Savile Row, old money in quiet cashmere, new money in loud diamonds. They orbited each other like slow planets, champagne flutes tilted at the same angle, laughter pitched at the same volume. A senator shook hands near the bar. A tech CEO posed for a photographer. Everyone performed. Nobody was real. Then, Victoria Whitfield walked in. 26. Platinum blonde waves brushing bare shoulders, skin like milk under chandelier light. A red Valentino gown, $47,000 of hand-beaded crystal catching fire with every step. The thigh-high slit flashed silver Jimmy Choo heels that cracked against marble like a judge's gavel. A 3-strand Cartier diamond necklace pressed heavy against her collarbone. Crimson gel nails, long, sharp, freshly done, curled around a Judith Lieber clutch. The scent of Clive Christian arrived 3 steps before she did. She smiled. The room bent toward her. "Darling, divine," a silver-haired woman cooed. Victoria's red nails fluttered, not a wave, a dismissal. She scanned the room the way a landlord scans property. Her eyes slid over waitstaff without stopping. They were furniture that carried drinks. Across that invisible line stood a man no one would remember by morning. Warren Adams, 45, 6'1". Broad shoulders packed into a black waiter's uniform 1 size too small. Sleeves riding up thick forearms roped with tendon and old callus. Salt and pepper hair cropped tight to the skull. 3 pale scars crossed the knuckles of his left hand, faded but permanent. Gifts from a childhood shuffled through 7 foster homes in the Bronx. His black shoes had given up their shine years ago. The rubber soles squeaked on marble every 3rd step. He carried a silver tray with a stillness that didn't come from training. It came from somewhere deeper. His face gave nothing. No smile, no complaint, no opinion. Stone. But his eyes were something else entirely. Dark, quiet, recording. They tracked the floor manager snapping at a young waitress over a crooked napkin. They clocked a guest waving away a busboy without lifting his gaze from his phone. They watched Victoria's crimson nails flick toward a server who'd approached from the wrong side. The server flinching like a dog expecting a kick. Warren noted it all. Every dismissal, every snapped finger, every pair of eyes that looked through him like glass. He filed each one the way an accountant files receipts. Quietly, precisely, for later. Reaching for a linen cloth on a high shelf, his sleeve pulled back an inch. Underneath, a flash of blue dial, white gold case. A Patek Philippe Nautilus, a watch worth more than every car in the hotel garage combined. It sat on his wrist like a secret. No one saw it. No one ever looked at a waiter's wrist. No one ever looked at a waiter at all. The crystal teardrops kept splitting light. The quartet kept playing Vivaldi. And Victoria Whitfield kept smiling her white smile at people who mattered, while the man who held her father's future on his wrist poured champagne 2 tables away. Neither of them knew what was coming, but one of them had planned for it. It happened at 9:47. Warren moved through the crowd the way water moves through stone, around everything, touching nothing. Silver tray balanced on his left palm, 6 champagne flutes catching chandelier light. He kept his eyes forward, his steps measured, his breathing even. Victoria stood near the grand piano with 3 women who looked almost exactly like her. Blonde, tanned, draped in labels. They laughed at something that wasn't funny, throwing their heads back in choreographed amusement. Victoria held court at the center, one hand on her hip, the other lifting a champagne flute to lips painted the same red as her dress. Warren approached from the east side. Protocol said approach from the left, always from the left. But a busboy with a dessert cart had blocked that path, and the floor manager was already glaring at Warren for being 12 seconds behind rotation. So he adjusted, came from the right, tray steady, eyes down. A man in a gray suit stepped backward without looking, celebrating a punchline, arms wide, bourbon sloshing. His elbow caught Warren's forearm. Not hard, just enough. One flute tilted. A single drop of champagne, no more than a teaspoon, slid off the rim and landed on the hem of Victoria's red Valentino gown. A dark spot the size of a dime on $47,000 of hand-beaded crystal. The world stopped. Victoria looked down. Her smile vanished like someone had switched off a light. Her jaw tightened, her nostrils flared. The 3 blonde women took a half step back, sensing what was coming the way animals sense earthquakes. You... Victoria's voice came out low, controlled, the kind of quiet that's louder than screaming. She looked up at Warren. Her ice blue eyes traveled from his scuffed shoes to his too-tight uniform, to his salt and pepper hair, to his dark skin. And something in her face changed. Something old and ugly surfaced. "Do you have any idea," she said, loud enough for the nearest 30 guests to hear, "what you just did?" "Ma'am, I apologize. It was..." "It was what? An accident?" She stepped closer, the scent of Clive Christian mixed with champagne and fury. "People like you don't get to have accidents in a room like this. People like you don't belong in a room like this." The ballroom was listening now. Conversations died in expanding circles like ripples moving outward from a dropped stone. Heads turned. Phones appeared. Warren stood still. "I'll have it cleaned immediately, ma'am. I'm very sorry." "Sorry?" Victoria laughed. A sharp, brittle sound like glass breaking. She turned to her friends. "He's sorry. Isn't that precious?" The friends said nothing. Their smiles had frozen. Victoria turned back. Her crimson nails, long, sharp, glinting under crystal light, curled into her palm. She stepped forward until she was close enough for Warren to count the diamonds on her Cartier necklace. "Let me explain something to you." Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the silent room. "You are nothing. You are less than nothing. You are the help, and the help does not ruin a Valentino and say sorry like that fixes it." Warren's jaw tightened. A muscle flickered near his temple, but he said nothing. His hands stayed at his sides. The silver tray hung from his left hand, perfectly level. Victoria's right hand came up fast. The slap cracked across the ballroom like a gunshot. Her palm, crimson nails, diamond ring, soft skin that had never known a day of labor, connected with his left cheek. The ring caught the skin below his eye. His head turned with the force of it. A red welt rose instantly on dark skin, 5 finger marks blooming like a brand. 300 people saw it. 300 people heard it. The string quartet stopped mid-note. A champagne flute somewhere shattered on marble. Nobody moved. Gerald Whitfield stood at the VIP table near the stage. 60 years old, silver hair combed back, Brioni suit, silk pocket square. He watched his daughter slap a black waiter in front of every important person in the city. He lifted his champagne glass, took a sip, looked away. Warren straightened, slowly. His left cheek burned red under brown skin. He looked at Victoria, not with anger, not with humiliation, with something she couldn't read, something that made her blink. He reached behind his back, untied the apron strings, pulled the white fabric over his head, folded it once, neat, precise, deliberate, and laid it on the silver tray. As his arms moved, the sleeve of his uniform pulled back. The Patek Philippe Nautilus caught the chandelier light. Blue dial, white gold, $60,000 on the wrist of a man who'd just been slapped for spilling a drop of champagne. Nobody noticed. They were all looking at the red marks on his face. Warren set the tray on the nearest table, turned, walked toward the service exit. His rubber soles squeaked on marble, the only sound in a room of 300 silent people. He didn't run, didn't hurry. Each step was measured, even, controlled. The way a man walks when he knows exactly where he's going. The service door closed behind him with a soft click. Victoria smoothed her dress, tossed her platinum hair, turned back to her friends with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Well," she said, "that's handled." The quartet started playing again. Conversations resumed. Champagne flowed. And within the hour, Victoria Whitfield would post the video herself, because she thought she was the hero of this story. She wasn't. The video hit Instagram at 11:14 that night. Victoria posted it herself. She'd had a friend record the whole thing. Not the champagne drop, not the accident, just the slap and its aftermath. The camera angle was perfect. Flattering. It caught Victoria from her good side, chin lifted, Valentino catching the light. It caught the waiter's face turning with the impact. It caught her smile afterward. The caption read, "Teaching the help some manners at Daddy's Gala." By midnight, it had 40,000 likes. By 2 a.m., 200,000. By sunrise, 1.3 million views. Victoria's phone buzzed non-stop on her nightstand. She scrolled through the comments with her legs crossed on Egyptian cotton sheets, a glass of rosé in one hand, her Pomeranian curled beside her. The comments from her circle poured in like warm milk. "Queen behavior. He literally had one job, Lamau. This is why you don't hire from the street. Iconic. Absolutely iconic." Victoria screenshotted the best ones, posted them to her story, added a laughing emoji. She was curating her own legend, and she loved every second of it. She didn't scroll far enough to see the other comments, the ones multiplying underneath like a slow infection. Did she just assault a man and post it like a flex? Imagine hitting someone for a champagne drop. This woman needs to lose everything. Someone find out who that waiter is. He deserves better. By morning, #Gala slap was trending in 14 cities. The internet split clean down the middle. One side saw a woman protecting her property, standing up for standards, enforcing the natural order. The other side saw a rich white woman slapping a black man for existing in her space and celebrating it like a trophy. Think pieces multiplied. Cable news picked it up. A civil rights organization issued a statement. A rapper with 18 million followers quote-tweeted the video with 3 words. "We remember this." Victoria noticed the backlash the way a yacht notices a ripple. She posted a selfie the next afternoon. Fresh blowout, new Hermes bag, brunch at the Ivy. Caption, "Haters gonna hate. My dress cost more than your mortgage." Her friends texted fire emojis. Her follower count climbed by 30,000. In Victoria's world, outrage was just another form of attention. And attention was currency she'd been spending her whole life. The waiter, meanwhile, had vanished. No name, no social media, no interview requests answered. The hotel's HR department confirmed he'd been hired through a third-party staffing agency. But when journalists called the agency, the number was disconnected. No records, no forwarding address, no trace. It was as if he'd walked out of that service door and dissolved into the New York night. #Who is the waiter trended for a day, then faded. The internet moved on to the next outrage. Victoria kept posting. The story seemed over. It wasn't. 40 floors above Manhattan, in a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the East River, Gerald Whitfield wasn't thinking about waiters or hashtags or trending topics. He was thinking about money. Specifically, $200 million of it. The annual board meeting was 9 days away, and for the first time in Whitfield Industries' 23-year history, the company's largest shareholder, a private equity fund called Adams Capital Partners, had requested a face-to-face meeting. Not through email, not through lawyers. The CEO of Adams Capital wanted to sit in the boardroom, look Gerald in the eye, and discuss the future of the investment. Gerald had never met the man. In 5 years of partnership, every interaction had passed through intermediaries, law firms, investment banks, encrypted correspondence. Adams Capital had poured $340 million into Whitfield Industries, acquiring 35% of the company. They were the silent engine behind every expansion, every acquisition, every quarterly report that made Gerald look like a genius. And now their CEO wanted to meet, in person, to discuss continued commitment and cultural alignment. Gerald took it as a good sign, a great sign. He told his CFO to prepare the best pitch deck of their careers. He told his assistant to order the same champagne they'd served at the Gala, Dom Perignon, the vintage. He told his wife to buy a new tie, Power Red. "This meeting decides the next decade," Gerald said, standing at the head of the conference table, both palms flat on mahogany. "Adams Capital doubles down. Our stock jumps 30% overnight. We become untouchable." He said the word untouchable and believed it completely. On his way home that evening, Gerald called his daughter. "Victoria, the board meeting next Thursday. I need you there." "Daddy, board meetings are literally the most boring thing on earth." "This isn't optional. You're my successor. Act like it. Wear something professional. And for God's sake, stay off Instagram for one morning." Victoria sighed dramatically. "Fine." She hung up and went back to scrolling her mentions. A fan account had made a compilation of her best moments. The Gala slap was #1. She watched it 3 times. Each time she smiled wider. 9 days. That's how long the Whitfield family had left before their entire world tipped over. And somewhere across the city, in a penthouse they didn't know existed, a man with salt and pepper hair and scars on his knuckles was watching the same video on a 70-inch screen. Not smiling, not angry, just watching. The way a surgeon studies an X-ray before picking up the scalpel. The elevator opened on the 58th floor, and a different world began. Warren Adams' penthouse overlooked Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline like a painting no gallery could afford. Minimal furniture, clean lines, dark leather, polished concrete. No clutter, no excess, just space, silence, and a bookshelf covering an entire wall, packed with financial journals and dog-eared economic histories. A Basquiat original hung above the fireplace, not a print. $11 million at Sotheby's. Warren had bought it because it reminded him of something. A kid from nowhere, painting his rage onto walls until the world couldn't look away. He stood by the window now, Central Park spreading green far below. No waiter's uniform, no scuffed shoes, navy Brioni suit. Custom cut, peak lapel, fabric that moved like water. The Patek Philippe Nautilus on his left wrist catching morning light. John Lobb Oxfords, polished to a mirror. His salt and pepper hair was the same. His scars were the same. But the man wearing them was unrecognizable. This was the real Warren Adams, founder and CEO of Adams Capital Partners, a private equity fund managing $2.3 billion across 47 companies. 40 employees on the top floor of a Madison Avenue tower. 22% annual returns for 12 consecutive years. Forbes number 114. Bloomberg had profiled him twice. He declined both times. Warren didn't like being known. Being unknown was his greatest weapon. In the corner of his office, behind a glass case lit by a single halogen, hung 4 uniforms. A janitor's jumpsuit, gray, name tag reading Bill. A FedEx delivery polo, wrinkled, coffee-stained. A kitchen porter's apron from a restaurant in Chicago. And the newest, a black waiter's uniform, one size too small, with a folded white apron on top. Each uniform was a mission. Each mission was a test. Warren had grown up with nothing. Orphaned at 3. 7 foster homes in the Bronx before 16. 3 were bad, 2 were worse. The scars on his knuckles weren't from fights he started. They were from doors he'd tried to keep closed at night. He taught himself financial statements at the public library on 149th Street. GED at 17. Community college. Started trading with $400 saved from washing dishes at a diner on Jerome Avenue. First million at 24. First billion at 38.
But the money was never the point.
Warren had learned something in those foster homes that no business school could teach. The way people treat you when they think you're powerless is the only truth that matters. Everything else is performance. So before investing a single dollar, Warren went undercover. He mopped floors at a tech company in Austin, watched the CEO scream at a cleaning woman, then give a TED Talk about empathy the next day. Pulled the investment. He delivered packages at a startup in Denver, watched every employee hold the door, watched the founder eat lunch with warehouse workers. Invested $40 million. That company tripled.
Whitfield Industries was his biggest bet.
$340 million. 35% ownership. Gerald Whitfield had never seen Warren's face. Every communication passed through attorneys and fund managers. Until 9 days ago, when he'd put on the waiter's uniform and watched Victoria Whitfield's crimson nails crack across his face.
Now he sat at his desk,
Reclaimed walnut that had once been a church door, watching security footage on his monitor. Not Victoria's Instagram version, the real version. 4 angles, crystal clear audio, bought from the hotel's head of security for $50,000 in cash. Warren watched it 3 times. Not the slap. He watched Gerald. He watched Gerald see it happen. Watched him lift his glass, take a sip, and look away. That was the moment. Not the slap, the sip.
he pressed the intercom.
Elena, conference room, 20 minutes. Elena Brooks, his chief of staff, appeared with a legal pad and 6 attorneys. They sat around a glass table with a view of the Chrysler building. The board meeting is in 8 days, Warren said. He stood at the window, hands in pockets. I'll be attending in person. Elena's pen stopped. You've never attended in person. I've never been slapped in person. Silence.
Prepare the full cultural assessment.
Security footage, organizational behavior analysis, everything. He turned from the window. And prepare the divestiture documents, complete exit, all $340 million. Elena set her pen down. Warren, that's our largest position. He looked at her. The same dark eyes that had stared at Victoria over a silver tray. The same stone face. But behind the stone, something burned. It was, he said. Prepare the documents.
8 days became 5.
5 became 2. And Gerald Whitfield could feel the clock in his chest like a second heartbeat. He arrived at the office before dawn on Tuesday, 2 days before the board meeting. The building was empty. His footsteps echoed through the marble lobby. The security guard nodded. Gerald didn't notice. He was running numbers in his head, rehearsing phrases, imagining handshakes. His corner office on the 39th floor had been reorganized 3 times that week. Fresh flowers, white roses, no color, nothing distracting. A new Mont Blanc pen set arranged on the desk like surgical instruments. The pitch deck sat on his screen. 42 slides of growth projections, market analysis, and carefully worded promises. He'd reviewed it 11 times, changed the font twice, moved a decimal point that didn't need moving. Gerald picked up the phone and called Adams Capital for the 6th time that week. The same receptionist answered with the same polished voice. Adams Capital Partners, how may I direct your call? This is Gerald Whitfield. I'd like to confirm Thursday's agenda with Mr. Adams' office. A pause. Then, Mr. Adams has confirmed his attendance. He will be arriving at 9 a.m. sharp. He has 1 addition to the agenda. Gerald's pen stopped. What addition? Item 7. Cultural due diligence assessment. Cultural due... What does that mean exactly? Mr. Adams will present it himself. Is there anything else, Mr. Whitfield?
Gerald hung up.
Cultural due diligence. He rolled the phrase around in his mouth like a piece of food he couldn't identify. Probably some HR buzzword. ESG metrics. Diversity statistics. The kind of thing consultants charged $50,000 to produce and nobody read. He shrugged it off. The important thing was item 1 through 6. The money. The $200 million. The future. That evening, Gerald tried on his new suit. Charcoal Zegna. His wife adjusted the lapels. He chose the red tie. the one he wore when he wanted to project authority. He practiced his opening line in the bathroom mirror. "Mr. Adams, it's an honor to finally meet the man behind the fund." He said it 4 times. Each time, he smiled wider. Meanwhile, 40 blocks south, Victoria Whitfield was having a different kind of evening.
She stood in her walk-in closet,
A room the size of most New York apartments, flipping through racks of dresses with the speed of someone who'd been doing this since she could stand. Board meeting. Professional. Boring. She pulled a red Dolce & Gabbana sheath dress off the rack and held it against herself in the mirror. Red. Always red. Red was power. Red was her color. She paired it with a Cartier love bracelet, red-soled Louboutins, and a blowout appointment for Thursday morning. Done. Board meeting outfit in under 4 minutes. A new personal record. Her phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Someone had commented on the Gala video again. The 12,000th comment that week. She didn't open it. She'd stopped reading comments 3 days ago. Not because they bothered her, because they bored her. Old news. What Victoria didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that 6 blocks from her closet, a journalist named Diane Collins was sitting in a cramped office at the Financial Herald, staring at a corkboard covered in red string and printouts. Diane had been pulling threads on #GalaSlap for 9 days. The waiter had no employment record at the Meridian Grand. The staffing agency that supposedly hired him didn't exist. The phone number traced to a disconnected burner. The hotel's head of security had resigned 3 days after the gala, citing personal reasons. And the security camera footage from that night had been purchased, all 4 angles, by an anonymous buyer for an undisclosed sum. Someone had cleaned the scene, professionally, expensively. Diane had spent 14 years covering white-collar crime. She knew what professional cleanup looked like. And this wasn't a waiter covering his tracks. This was someone with resources, serious resources. She pulled the guest list for the gala, cross-referenced it with the staffing company's registration documents. Found nothing. Then she searched the other direction. Who had recently increased their investment in Whitfield Industries? Who had access but stayed invisible? At 2 a.m., Diane found a filing with the SEC Adams Capital Partners. 35% stake. No public photo of the CEO. No interviews. No conference appearances. A ghost with $340 million in Whitfield stock. She couldn't prove it, not yet, but her gut told her the story was bigger than a slap. She was right. She just didn't know how right. Wednesday night, the eve of the board meeting. Gerald sat in bed, reading glasses perched on his nose, reviewing the pitch deck one final time on his iPad. His wife slept beside him. The house was quiet. His phone lit up. An email from Adams Capital. Subject: Updated agenda. Item 7, Materials. Gerald opened the attachment, a single PDF. The cover page read, Whitfield Industries, Cultural Due Diligence Field Assessment, prepared by Adams Capital Partners. He scrolled through the first 2 pages. Corporate jargon, employee satisfaction metrics, organizational charts, nothing alarming. He yawned, closed the iPad, set his alarm for 5:30. Tomorrow was the biggest day of his career. He was sure of it. He was right about that too, just not in the way he imagined. Across the city, Warren Adams stood at his window, watching the Manhattan skyline pulse with light. His suit for tomorrow hung on the bedroom door. Tom Ford, black, 3-piece. The security footage was loaded on a flash drive in his briefcase. The divestiture documents were signed, notarized, and sealed. He looked at his reflection in the dark glass, the scars on his knuckles, the faint red mark on his left cheek that had finally faded. Everything was ready. He turned off the light. Thursday, 9 a.m., the 40th floor of Whitfield Tower. The boardroom had been prepared like a stage. A long table of dark oak stretched across the room, 12 leather chairs arranged with military precision. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Manhattan skyline, steel and glass glittering under a cold autumn sun. Fresh flowers sat at the center of the table, white roses again. A tray of Evian bottles, labels facing outward. 2 carafes of coffee, steam still rising. A bottle of Dom Perignon chilling in a silver bucket near the credenza. Gerald's personal touch. Gerald Whitfield sat at the head of the table. Charcoal Zegna suit, red power tie, silver hair combed back with precision. His Mont Blanc pen lay parallel to a leather portfolio. He looked the part. He'd spent 59 years learning how to look the part. But beneath the table, his right hand kept opening and closing, fingers pressing into his palm, releasing, pressing again. Sweat gathered in the creases. Victoria sat to his right. Red Dolce & Gabbana sheath dress, hair pulled into a high blonde chignon, red lips, Cartier love bracelet catching light every time she moved her wrist. Red-soled Louboutins crossed at the ankle beneath the table. She scrolled Instagram under the table's edge, thumb moving in the slow, automatic rhythm of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. 8 board members filled the remaining seats. Gray suits, reading glasses, laptops open. They murmured to each other in the low, measured tones of people who moved money for a living. The CFO, a thin man named Harold Price, reviewed his notes for the 3rd time, pen tapping against his legal pad. 9:03. Gerald checked his watch, checked the door, checked his watch again. 9:04. The room hummed with the particular tension of people waiting for someone more powerful than themselves. 9:05. The glass door opened. Warren Adams walked in. Not the Warren Adams who had carried a silver tray 9 days ago. Not the man in the too small uniform with squeaking shoes and downcast eyes. That man had been designed to disappear. This one was designed to command. Black Tom Ford suit. 3 pieces. Custom tailored. The jacket sat on his broad shoulders like it had been born there, tapering to a narrow waist, each button catching light. The fabric was so dark it seemed to absorb the room. Underneath, a white shirt with a spread collar, no tie. The only man in the room confident enough to skip one. The Patek Philippe Nautilus gleamed on his left wrist, the same blue dial, the same white gold case that had flashed unnoticed under the ballroom's service lights. John Lobb Oxford shoes, polished to a mirror finish, clicked against the marble floor with a sound nothing like squeaking rubber. His salt and pepper hair was the same. The scars across his knuckles were the same. The dark, quiet eyes were the same. Everything else was transformed. He walked slowly, each step deliberate, measured, the way a man walks when the room already belongs to him and he's just arriving to collect it. 2 attorneys followed, a woman in a charcoal suit carrying a leather briefcase, a man in navy with a silver laptop under his arm. They moved like shadows. Warren's eyes swept the room. The oak table, the white roses, the champagne bucket, the 8 board members who'd never met him, the CFO with the tapping pen. Then his gaze reached Victoria. She felt it before she saw it. Something cold settled on her skin like a window had opened in winter. She looked up from her phone. Their eyes met. The recognition took exactly 1.5 seconds. Her brain processed it in layers. Dark skin, salt and pepper hair, broad shoulders, the line of the jaw, those eyes. Those quiet, recording eyes. The same eyes that had looked at her over a silver tray while her handprint burned red on his cheek. The blood drained from Victoria's face so fast it was almost visible, like watching color leave a photograph. Her lips parted. No sound came out. The phone slipped from her fingers and clattered on the table. Her right hand, the hand that had delivered the slap, knocked her water glass. It tipped. Water spread across the dark oak in a slow, silent pool. Nobody reached for a napkin. Every eye in the room followed hers to the man in the doorway. Gerald stood, extended his hand, smiled the smile he'd practiced in the bathroom mirror. "Mr. Adams, it's an honor to finally meet the man behind—" "Mr. Whitfield." Warren's voice was low, unhurried. He shook Gerald's hand, a firm, brief grip. His scarred knuckles wrapped around Gerald's soft palm for exactly 2 seconds. The lead attorney stepped forward. "Allow me to introduce Mr. Warren Adams, founder and chief executive officer of Adams Capital Partners, holder of 35% of Whitfield Industries' outstanding shares, your company's single largest investor." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Gerald's smile froze. His eyes darted to Warren's face, really looked at it for the first time, then to Victoria, then back to Warren. The practiced smile crumbled at the edges, replaced by something raw and involuntary. His mouth opened slightly. His skin turned the color of the white roses on the table. He recognized him. Not from the gala. Gerald hadn't looked at the waiter long enough to remember a face. He recognized the situation. The impossible, catastrophic geometry of what his daughter had done. Victoria sat rigid. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, Cartier bracelet digging into skin. Her red lips were pressed together so tightly they'd gone pale. The water from the spilled glass dripped off the table's edge onto her red dress, a dark stain spreading across Dolce & Gabbana, and this time, she didn't say a word. Warren pulled out his chair, sat down, opened his laptop, adjusted his cufflinks. Not once did he look at Victoria. Not once did he acknowledge the spilled water, the white face, the trembling hands. He didn't need to. The room was doing his work for him. "Shall we begin?" he said. Gerald lowered himself into his chair like a man whose legs had stopped working properly. He nodded, tried to speak, cleared his throat, tried again. "Yes," he managed. "Of course. Welcome." The projector hummed to life. The first slide appeared on the screen. And somewhere in Victoria's chest, behind the red dress and the Cartier and the carefully constructed armor of wealth, something cracked. Warren clicked to the first slide. His voice filled the boardroom the way dark water fills a basement. Slowly, steadily, impossible to stop. Whitfield Industries, 5-year investment review. He walked them through it with surgical precision. Revenue growth, 14% compound annual. Market share expansion in 3 verticals. Successful acquisition of 2 regional competitors. Debt-to-equity ratio within acceptable parameters. Each slide was clean, data-rich, and delivered in a tone so calm it bordered on hypnotic. Gerald began to breathe again. Numbers. He understood numbers. Numbers were safe. Maybe this was just a standard review. Maybe the man in the Tom Ford suit had decided to separate business from personal. Maybe the cultural due diligence was just a formality. Gerald's grip on his Mont Blanc pen loosened by a fraction. 12 slides passed, then 13. Each one professional, neutral, almost warm. The CFO, Harold Price, allowed himself a small nod. 2 board members exchanged a cautious glance that said, "Maybe this will be fine." Slide 14 ended with a summary. Financial assessment. Strong. Gerald's chest expanded. He almost smiled. Warren clicked once more. Slide 15 appeared. The title read, Cultural Due Diligence, Field Assessment. The room's temperature dropped 3 degrees. Not literally, but everybody in those 12 leather chairs felt it. Warren paused, looked at the screen, looked at Gerald. Then, without a word, he pressed play. The video filled the wall-mounted display. Not Victoria's Instagram version, the carefully angled, flattering selfie cam that made her look righteous and the waiter look clumsy. This was security camera footage, wide angle, high definition. 4 different cameras edited into a seamless sequence. Camera 1, Warren approaching with the tray. The gray-suited man stepping backward, the collision. Camera 2, the champagne drop hitting the red dress. Victoria's face changing. The transformation from socialite to something older and uglier. Camera 3, the audio, crystal clear. Every word Victoria had said captured by the overhead microphone the hotel used for event recordings. People like you don't belong in a room like this. You are nothing. You are less than nothing. The help does not ruin a Valentino and say sorry. Each sentence landing in the silent boardroom like a hammer on glass. Camera 4, the slap, close angle, crimson nails, diamond ring, the crack of palm against cheek, Warren's head turning, the red mark blooming on dark skin. And then, the wide shot. 300 people, standing still, watching. Gerald Whitfield lifting his champagne glass to his lips and turning away. The video ended. The screen went dark. The boardroom was so quiet that the hum of the air conditioning sounded like a scream. No one looked at Victoria. Everyone looked at Victoria. She sat frozen. Tears ran down her cheeks in 2 straight lines, cutting through foundation and blush, dropping off her jaw onto the red dress. Her mascara bled black trails under her eyes. Her lips moved but produced nothing. The Cartier bracelet trembled against the table's edge with a faint metallic tick. Warren stood. He buttoned his jacket, a single unhurried motion. He walked to the head of the table, not Gerald's end, the other end. The end closest to the screen, where the frozen image of a slap still lingered in everyone's retinas. "I invest in people," Warren said. His voice hadn't changed. Same tone as slide 1, same cadence as the revenue charts. Not just balance sheets, not just margins, people. He let the word hang. "My process is simple. Before I commit capital to any organization, I go inside. I work as the lowest paid person in the building. I mop floors, I carry trays, I deliver packages, and I watch." He looked at Gerald. "I watch how the leadership treats the people who can't fight back." Gerald's face was ash gray. His Mont Blanc pen lay on the table, abandoned. Both hands gripped the chair's armrests. "Whitfield Industries has been my largest investment for 5 years," Warren continued. $340 million, 35% ownership. I believed in this company's future." He paused. 9 days ago, I put on a waiter's uniform and walked into your gala to evaluate your organization's culture firsthand." He turned to the screen, the frozen frame of the slap. "This is what I found." Silence. The kind of silence that has weight, the kind that presses on eardrums and makes people forget how to swallow. Warren opened his briefcase, removed a single folder, placed it on the table. "Effective 30 days from today, Adams Capital Partners will divest its entire position in Whitfield Industries. All shares, 35%, will be liquidated on the open market. Additionally, the proposed $200 million expansion investment is terminated." The CFO's pen dropped. It hit the legal pad, rolled off the table, and clattered on the floor. No one picked it up. Board member James Turner pulled at his tie. "Mr. Adams, surely we can discuss—" "There's nothing to discuss." Warren's eyes didn't leave Gerald. "The decision is final." Victoria stood, her chair scraped backward on marble. Her voice came out broken, wet, barely audible. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. If I had known who you were, I never would have—" Warren turned to her for the first time since entering the room. He looked at her the way you look at a sentence you've already finished reading. "That's the problem, Ms. Whitfield." His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Almost. "You said if I had known who you were, which means you'd do it again, to anyone you thought was beneath you. The apology isn't for me. It's for every person you've treated like that when no camera was rolling." Victoria's mouth opened, closed. Her legs buckled slightly. She gripped the chair back. Warren closed his laptop, slid it into his briefcase, fastened the clasp. He straightened his cuffs, left, then right, and walked toward the door. He stopped at the threshold, one hand on the glass. He turned his head, not his body, just his head, and looked back at Victoria. Red dress, black mascara trails, white knuckles, water stains still spreading on Dolce & Gabbana. "Thank you for the gala, Ms. Whitfield." A pause so small only silence could hold it. "It saved me $200 million. He walked out. His John Lobb Oxfords clicked down the marble hallway, steady, even, unhurried. The sound grew fainter, then gone. The glass door swung shut on its hydraulic arm with a soft, final hiss. Inside the boardroom, Gerald Whitfield sat motionless, staring at the empty chair where $340 million had been sitting 30 seconds ago. His red tie suddenly felt like a noose. The air conditioning hummed. The white roses sat perfect and useless in their vase. And somewhere on the table, a pool of spilled water kept spreading. Slow, silent, unstoppable. The first domino fell before lunch. By noon, 3 board members had retained personal counsel. By 2 p.m., unusual volume in Whitfield stock triggered flags at Goldman Sachs. By closing bell, the share price had dropped 11% on no public news, just whispers. The kind that travel through Wall Street like fire through dry grass. 48 hours later, Adams Capital filed its Form 4 with the SEC. 35% of Whitfield Industries liquidated. $340 million withdrawn. The filing hit wire services at dawn on Saturday. By Monday's opening bell, the stock had cratered 42%. $2.1 billion in market value, erased. Then, Diane Collins published her story.
The waiter who owned the company.
Front page of the Financial Herald. The story laid it all bare. Warren Adams, orphaned at 3, 7 foster homes, $400, self-made billionaire. The undercover philosophy, the uniform, the gala, the slap, the boardroom. 14 million views in 24 hours. Hashtag Justice for Warren trended in 31 countries. The security camera footage leaked. 50 million views. News anchors played it on loop. A muralist in Brooklyn painted Warren's face on a warehouse wall. Salt and pepper hair, scarred hands, with the words, "Respect costs nothing." Gerald Whitfield resigned 13 days after the board meeting. 4-sentence statement. Personal reasons. He left through the service entrance, the same door Warren had walked out of the night of the gala. Victoria's world collapsed in stages. The trust fund froze first. The black Amex stopped working at a Bergdorf checkout. Then the friends vanished. Fire emoji texters gone like smoke. Phone calls unanswered. Brunch invitations dead. The silver-haired woman who'd called her divine unfollowed her on Instagram. Then the apartment. Without the trust fund, the Tribeca penthouse was gone. Victoria moved to a 1-bedroom in Jersey City. No doorman, no view. Her Instagram went private at 400,000 followers. It had been 1.2 million the night of the gala. 12 months later, a woman with brown hair, dyed from platinum, roots showing, walked into a small PR firm in Hoboken. Flat shoes, no jewelry, a Zara blazer. She handed her resume to the receptionist and sat in a plastic chair, hands folded, eyes on the floor. She got the job. Executive assistant. $45,000 a year, the price of the clutch she'd carried to the gala. Warren didn't watch the collapse. He was already somewhere else. 3 months after the board meeting, he established the Adams Foundation. 100 full-ride scholarships per year for children aging out of foster care. Housing, mentorship, the help no one had offered him at 16. 6 months later, he put on another uniform, gray maintenance jumpsuit. Name tag, Ray. A 12-person startup in a Brooklyn warehouse, mop in hand. On his 3rd day, a young developer stopped him in the hallway. Couldn't have been older than 25. She held out a paper cup of coffee. Long shift, huh? Take a break when you need one. Warren looked at the coffee. She wasn't performing, wasn't calculating, just being decent to someone she thought cleaned floors for a living. He took it. Thank you. Of course, she smiled, walked away. Warren stood in that hallway holding a paper cup from a stranger who'd been kind for no reason. The mop handle against his shoulder, fluorescent lights buzzing. He smiled. The first real smile since the night of the gala. 2 weeks later, Adams Capital invested $15 million in that startup. Within 18 months, it was valued at $200 million. Warren Adams built his empire on one question, asked with mops and trays and uniforms instead of words. Who are you when nobody's watching? What would you have done if you were Warren? Would you have walked away or made them pay right there? Drop your answer in the comments. If this story reminded you that respect costs nothing but buys everything, share it. Someone needs to hear this. Subscribe. The next story is even wilder.